The new HBO's top-rated show, which managed to surpass even the all-time favorites Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, is quite different from what you'd define as popular. Because it's real. However, how real can it possibly be? What is the margin between real and too real? You're watching the Apostrophe, and we've gathered some facts that might make a good movie, but certainly do not reflect the actual truth about Chernobyl catastrophe. Let's begin. One of the storylines in the show is about the miners from Tula that were digging a place under the reactor in order to create a cooling pillow. They were indeed working 24/7, but not naked, as it was shown in one of the episodes. According to the witnesses, the miners were always wearing white underwear. That was an official soldier uniform, usually worn under Soviet military outfit. Of course, they were soaked to the bone all the time, but they would never fully strip, explains Elena Kozlova, a Chernobyl liquidator, in her interview to the Village Journal. It's totally possible that some of them might have unzipped their jackets, but certainly not, as their father made it.
So we're digging the old way. This is where our fathers mined. We're still wearing the fucking hats. What do you want?
They all knew perfectly well that the main danger lied into radioactive dust that could deal lethal damage on contact. That's why they were always wearing air-purifying respirators. In the fourth episode, we see the Lomonosov Moscow University Library from above. Notice this grey stone? Speaking vaguely, it's an object from the future. The library building is actually the Vernadsky National Library in Ukraine, and the stone sculpture is a memorial for the CNPP liquidators built in 2011, 25 years after the accident. Now to the misconception number 3, vodka. Throughout most of the episodes, we can see that vodka is available everywhere and to everyone. In one scene, we can even see how entire crates of the drink were delivered. But, in fact, everything was the exact opposite. First of all, there was no alcohol in Chernobyl, as since the beginning there had been a total prohibition going on. More importantly, during years 1985 up until 1990, there was a Gorbachev's anti-alcohol campaign taking place throughout USSR. Vodka, wine, and beer prices were jacked up, and the sales per day were restricted to time and amount. At that time, alcohol was a rarity, even on weddings. People caught drinking at work or in public places were prosecuted. According to people who have participated in removal of the aftermath of the CNPP explosion, everyone was so tired by the evening that they didn't have any interest in alcohol at all. We all know that there is a stereotypical, iconic version of Slavic people, sharing all the happiness, sadness, and important life decisions with vodka. But this is one major hyperbole. Secondly, no Soviet person drinks vodka like that. It's usually taken with some sort of an appetizer or during the meal. It is also never consumed in chugs or gulps, like whiskey or cognac. Look at how Legasov takes his vodka shot. You can't drink it like that. If you do this during the feast, you will be considered an alcoholic. Also, if you have ever tried vodka, you would know that its taste could not be described as delicious. So yet another issue in the show is that no people who drank vodka actually showed it through their facial expression. However, it's still possible that they just got so used to the taste of it that they didn't even care anymore. One could make an entire video just for explaining personality differences between real Legasov and the one shown to us. Speaking briefly, Legasov in real life was not the only savior of this world. Right up until the investigation of the Chernobyl's accident took place, Legasov was a non-public person, so little is known about his interests and traits. All of this has been contributed to conspiracy theories and make-believes. Chemist Ivan Sorokin describes Legasov as not a hero who swooped into action all by himself trying to protect the nation. He just happened to be a man important enough to be in front of the government as the lead expert, but not important enough to escape the not-so-pleasant discussions. What is also important is that Legasov had a family, which was never even mentioned throughout the series. Also, according to the deciphered monologues that were recorded by Legasov not long before his death, phrase "What is the cost of lies?" was not here. Onwards to the next stage, a UK screenwriter, Carla Marie Sweet, tweeted that she did not understand why the series did not have any people of color as actors. Her Twitter post has provoked negative reactions from internet users, including the Russian speakers. It was later discovered that indeed, at least one of the CNPP liquidators was a black man. His name is Igor Hirak, and he is still alive and well. In his interview, he told the journalist that he was sent to Chernobyl for 2.5 months during his military service in Kiev. We provided a passage for the ships and maintained the working condition of the bridge. Then, after one day off, we would switch places with another department and go to the station, says Hirak. Now, he is living in Russia, working as a driver on a factory. Fall of the helicopter that was moving above the destroyed reactor was in fact true, but it was not the radiation that caused it. Emergency happened not right after the explosion, but in October, almost 5 months later. The issue shown in the series was the radiation that caused the loss of control, while in fact it was the collision with one of the 3 120-meter tall building cranes which were used to build the nuclear reactor sarcophagus. Scene of collision with the crane is nevertheless present in the series as the helicopter hits it with its blades. To finish off, let's review some less significant but quite peculiar things that we've noticed as well. Another misconception was the banner in the Homyuk's cabinet. It said Brest is 970 years old. Brest is a city in Belarus that would officially have its 970th anniversary in 1989, 3 years after the scene. Here we can see a famous painting of a Russian realist Ilya Repin, Ivan the Terrible, and his son Ivan in Kremlin. There is no recorded data of this painting ever being in Kremlin. It is currently stored in the Tretyakov's gallery in Moscow. When the evacuation starts to take place in Chernobyl, we see a Sunday morning. Despite that, however, we see kids wearing school uniforms rushing to the safe place. Sunday was, and still is, a day off for every school in post-Soviet territory. And here we are on our last spotted issue. It's about the buildings in Chernobyl. We can see double-glazed windows. A huge discussion has broken out in the internet about whether such windows could or could not be present at that time. The thing is that while the technology was already spreading throughout the world, it was still quite an expensive purchase for a Soviet person. They were never produced in the USSR region either. That is why, in our opinion, people living in such casual panel buildings were just not likely to afford such luxury. Anyway guys, that's all the important information we've gathered so far. These were some of the few things Chernobyl got wrong. But the great thing is, it doesn't really matter. The creators certainly did an amazing job in passing the ambient and the anxiety that literally flooded the affected region. So if you liked the video, push the like button. What about the series in general? Don't be shy to leave a comment if you have something to say. Also, if you've noticed something that we have not covered, be sure to tell us about it. We'll be happy to know. Thanks so much for watching, and we hope to see you soon.